Thank you to my colleagues for the warm welcome. I'd also like to inform the House that I'll be splitting my time with the member for Beauport-Limoilou. Mr. Speaker, I'm very pleased to rise in the House today to speak to the very important motion put forward by the hard-working member from Parkdale High Park. Although my Conservative colleagues continue to boast about Canada's economic recovery, more and more I'm hearing stories from members of my community of Sudbury that times remain tough and that high-quality, well-paying jobs, well, Mr. Speaker, just aren't there in the numbers that they used to be. Under the Conservative stewardship of the economy, far too many of these family-supporting jobs have been lost, and Canadian households are increasingly feeling the squeeze of crippling household debt. Meanwhile, global economic instability and stagnation threatens already meagre economic growth here in Canada. Now, let me focus on the issue of Canada's infrastructure deficit and how strategic investment by the federal government can have a real impact on stimulating both short-term and long-term economic growth. Whether it's the Champlain Bridge linking Montreal with the South Shore or crumbling roads and sewage systems in my riding of Sudbury, it's clear that Canada is in desperate need of a major nationwide infrastructure building project. In Laval, Quebec in 2006, Mr. Speaker, we saw firsthand what can happen when we allow infrastructure to deteriorate beyond the point of repair. Here, 5 people were killed, including a young child, when a highway overpass collapsed. Just last month, we also witnessed issues related to falling debris on a Montreal highway, leading to its closure and ultimately resulting in additional traffic congestion and additional delays for commuters and businesses. Is this government prepared to wait until we see a major bridge collapse, like the one in Minnesota in 2007, to take action? This seems to be an extremely opportune time for the government to invest in a national infrastructure project. Interest rates remain at a historic low, making public infrastructure investment less expensive than it would have been in the past. So why, Mr. Speaker, isn't this government undertaking such an initiative now while money is cheap and Canadians desperately need jobs? After all, the Department of Finance itself has noted that infrastructure investment has more than 5 times the economic impact of corporate income tax cuts. In fact, it published this fact in the appendix of Budget 2009. Why then, Mr. Speaker, is this Conservative government pursuing an economic avenue which neglects infrastructure and focuses instead on giving corporate handouts to Bay Street executives in form of their corporate tax cuts? Why not strategically focus on infrastructure investment, something which will produce jobs in all regions of the country immediately, Mr. Speaker? On another front, I'm also very curious as to how the Conservatives' proposed strategic review will affect employees in the public sector. In my riding of Sudbury, the Canada Revenue Agency has a major presence and is truly one of the vital employers in our region. Any staffing cuts at this CRA facility would have large-scale negative effects on the greater community, and the economic spin-offs associated with the CRA facility are numerous in my community of Sudbury. Sudbury's economy is still recovering from the year-long strike at Valley, and I fear that should layoffs occur at the CRA Sudbury site, that will have extremely negative consequences for small businesses who rely on these public sector employees to maintain their bottom line. I have similarly grave concerns over staffing levels at the Sudbury Service Canada office, which is another important employer in the riding which provides vital services to the members of my community. I therefore urge the Minister of Finance to immediately reconsider all actions that reduce the public sector contribution to the economy. The government should be taking a more flexible approach than it has been. Myself and many hard-working Canadians believe that the government should therefore reconsider its planned spending cuts in light of global economic instability. More and more often I'm hearing from seniors, Mr. Speaker, who are unable to stretch their pension checks as well to meet the inflationary increase in the cost of living. This is because the real value of the Canadian Pension Plan, CPP as most of us call it, is not keeping up with the cost of living. And many individuals who have invested in other pensions are seeing their values slip away as pension funds lose money in stock markets or try to change payout rules to shift the risk onto their shoulders. People who have paid into the CPP and have saved up for their retirement from all of their working lives are now finding that the rules of the game were always secretly stacked against them. The only way to ensure that all Canadians are adequately supported in their retirement is a phased-in increase in the CPP. Previously, the Conservatives indicated they may be open to this option, but they have since turned their back on this proposal. And despite the Finance Minister's refusal to seriously consider this option, the proposal has a large amount of support, including from a previous Chief Actuary of CPP. Moreover, the CEO of the CPP Investment Board has said that the administrative costs of increasing the CPP would be lower, Mr. Speaker, than the private plan which the Minister of Finance has proposed. Mr. Speaker, we must now act to ensure that Canadian seniors are able to live without financial hardship. We cannot simply close our eyes to the issue, as it will only get worse, with the next generation of Canadians beginning to retire, increasing the percentage of Canadians receiving CPP. In conclusion, Mr. Speaker, New Democrats are not talking about spending, but rather investment. Investment in targeted incentives for real job creators. Investments in critical public infrastructure, roads, bridges, public transit, broadband internet, and investing in the training of workers for the 21st century global economy. Mr. Speaker, New Democrats know that now is the time to make strategic investments to promote economic growth and attack the jobs deficit. Now is the time to put partisanship aside and work together on pragmatic, practical policy solutions which encourage job creation, economic productivity, and the kind of investment which builds expertise in the Canadian workforce. I challenge those on the other side of the House to work together with New Democrats to meet the expectations of Canadians struggling to make ends meet during tough economic times by reaching across the aisle to develop concrete, long-term economic solutions which will be beneficial to hard-working Canadians. Thank you.